Hi guys, I'm Lawrence. I'm alcoholic. Um, yeah, Zoom. It's in Phoenix. So I'm from Phoenix. We're still doing a lot of the meetings in person and stuff. So I'm not used to the Zoom thing, but I appreciate you asking me, Sean. And let's see, my sobriety date's November 14th of 2010. My home group, I have two. One is on Monday nights. Actually, right now, someone's chairing it for me. That meeting is near and dear to my heart. It's a book study, and it's cool because it's the first one that I was actually a part of since the beginning, the genesis. When all this COVID stuff happened, we started it in a park, and there was four of us, and there'd be like ants crawling on us, and sometimes the sprinklers would come on and start shooting at us, and it'd be really fucking hot because Arizona's just really hot. And now we have it in a church, and we have coffee, and we got air conditioning and that whole thing, so we feel like pretty pumped about that. And then Thursday, the buck stops here, Men's Stag. Out here, if you guys ever come to Phoenix and you're a man, go to the buck stops here on Thursday. It's an incredible meeting. So yeah, let's see. I was born in Chicago. My dad was rode with different biker clubs. My mom, she's always been kind of like a hardworking, good woman who lives by principles of the program just naturally, which is weird for a guy like me because I have to really like try hard to be a good person, and she just makes it look easy and does it naturally. And I have one older sister. And growing up, like, I don't know, I was exposed to a lot of fucked up shit, but I also don't think that's why I'm alcoholic, because I have a lot of alcoholic friends that drink like I drank that had really good upbringings and their parents stayed together and they didn't get it, and the defining factor in my addiction, and I will talk about drugs too, and I know it's an AA meeting, I respect singleness of purpose, but even the big book talks about morphine and high power sedatives. And so it is what it is. I'm an opiate addict. I'm an alcoholic. I mean, really, it's like whatever you got, I'll do it. and, but so alcohol was definitely the first thing that took me down pretty hard. But I mean, by the end of it, I was like a pharmacy. I'd be usually on like 4 or 5 different things. But yeah, growing up, there was just a lot of crazy shit. And then I moved out here when I was to Phoenix when I was 11. And I just remember that was the first time I was like super depressed. I lost all my friends because I had friends in Chicago that I grew up with, like I could walk to their house and walk in, and it was like their mom was my mom, and it was like super comfortable. Like I thought these guys were gonna be my friends for my life. Moved out here, didn't know anybody. And I just remember being real depressed and feeling so alone. And I spent like a whole summer watching Nickelodeon by myself. And then my dad, he started hanging out with a bunch of junkies down in South Phoenix, and I would ride with him, and we had this little El Camino, and we would get in and we had our pit bull in the back, and me and him would drive down there, and I would hang out with all the other junkies kids, and he would be getting loaded. And I was just like, I just remember being so pumped to have friends again. And but I will say the defining factor for me in if I'm an addict or not is if I lose the ability to control it, if I'm showing an inability to control my drinking, if I'm using drugs and I have an ability to control it. Like, I mean, most normies don't inject heroin, right? But like, it is what it is. If you took a normal person and you got them hooked on any substance, I'm sure they would have some withdrawal symptoms. Sure, they would, but most of them can like do it responsibly somewhat and stop. Not me. Is like, they're like, all right, it's the weekend, let's party. And I'm like, all right, it's Monday at 8 a.m. Let's party, like all day, every day. It doesn't matter when. And it didn't really start that way. So when I was 11, I finally made all those friends, and I was running around South Phoenix, and we were getting in fist fights, and we were stealing candy bars from gas stations, and we were spray painting on walls. And, we would go to this Ford dealership on Camelback in I-17, and we would smash the windows with rocks, and we would steal popcorn out of their machine, and like just doing like little hood rat shit with my friends. And I just remember being so happy that I had friends. And then one morning, my mom walks in and she's crying her eyes out. And she told me that my dad had died and he had overdosed. And that was like super fucked up because we spent about a year going down there and hanging out, and I had built some good friends. And then I felt like I lost all those friends too. So I went from like getting A's and B's in school and just to being so rebellious. And I remember when my dad died, I like got this weird complex about how I had to protect my mom and my sister because I was the only man in the house, which is like a lot for an 11-year-old kid to try to take on. And I remember thinking the only person that could really tell me what to do just died. Like, no one's going to tell me shit from now on. And I got angry, man. I got real angry. And I started getting in a lot of fights at school. I started getting in a lot of trouble. I think it was like it was a stupid number. It was like 38 days of in-school suspension in my 7th grade year. And then my 8th grade year, the last month of it, they literally didn't let me go to classrooms. They just put me in school suspension by myself, and the teacher would bring homework in there, and I would just have to like sit in there alone and do my work, which was weird. It was like solitary confinement or something for an 8th grader. But so they let me graduate. I partially think that they graduated me just because they didn't want me at their school another year. Like some of the shit I was doing then just to like while out was like lighting off firecrackers in school, getting in fist fights, yelling derogatory terms at teachers, just whatever. And just super rebellious. And I remember I was like, I'll never do drugs. I'll never drink, blah, blah. That's what killed my dad. And age 16 came around, and I was at this like little party with my buddies, and everybody was drinking. And I thought, you know what? Alcohol is not really what killed my dad. I'm going to try it. And I drank a bunch of rum and beer that night. And I remember it was the first time in like that whole 5-year period where I didn't feel as angry. Like, I don't know, I got that warm feeling inside. I felt all right. I was like, man, the world's not so bad. Life's all right. And, you know, I didn't just start drinking every day instantly, but I was like, I'll definitely do that again. It wasn't bad. I like that. Like everybody always told me how bad drugs and alcohol were. They're lying. That was great. And if you fast forward from 16 on, God, I think within the year I was addicted to pills. I was started using everything, and it was a fast progression for me. It was like, all right, I'll drink alcohol, but I'll never do drugs. And it's like, all right, well, I'll do weed, but I'll never do coke. All right, well, I'll do coke, but I'll never sell drugs. All right, well, I'll sell drugs, but I'll never try XYZ. And before I know it, it was like, fuck it, I'll do and sell anything, you know, like just whatever you got. And real quickly, I think from 16 to 17, I had been arrested 8 times. I had multiple felonies on my record. Thank God I got them dropped to misdemeanors. And yeah, life was just out of control. So like the last week of getting loaded, I think the cops raided my house once. They didn't find anything to be able to arrest me. They did finally arrest me because I was really drunk one night and I broke into my own apartment complex's office. And that was kind of funny the way that happened. I'm like, it's like 4 a.m. and I was literally just going to get a soda, and I'm on like probably 4 or 5 different substances, including alcohol. And as I'm getting a soda, I'm convinced these girls that lived above me had stolen $1,300 out of my wallet. So I got this bright idea to like break the window, go in the office, get their apartment key, run back to their apartment, open their door, steal my money back, and steal some of their stuff. And not only will I have my money, now I will have even more things because I'm going to steal their stuff as well. And I was like, wow, that's a great plan. And I came up with it in about 5 seconds, drunk as hell, trying to get a soda from a soda machine. And as I punched through this window, can't really see it, but there's a scar right here, and it hit an artery. And then every time my heart would beat, blood would start shooting out. And this alarm started sounding. It was real loud. Like the whole apartment complex was like, woo, 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 just so loud. And I just remember running, and I got so scared, and I was running back to my apartment. And like 20 minutes later, the cops were pounding on my door. And I don't know if any of you guys ever hunted, but like sometimes you shoot a deer and it runs off, and you got to follow this blood trail until you can eventually get it and harvest. That's exactly what the cops did. They just followed my blood trail all the way from the apartment complex up the sidewalk, all the way to my house. And there I am. So I get arrested and I go to jail. And this was a weird experience for me. I had wanted to get sober, but it just felt like it was impossible. I even tried going to some AA meetings, but I'd kind of like show up late and leave a little early. And I remember one guy came up to me and asked for coffee after the meeting once. And I was just like, no, like, who the hell are you? I'm not like, no, like, I don't trust people, blah, blah, you know? And like, I didn't realize just going to meetings wasn't AA. Like I had to have a sponsor. I had to take some actions. It's an inside job. It's not like you can just sit around sober people and get sober because of osmosis or something. I had to do some work. And like, so I felt like AA didn't work. Although the truth was at that point, I had never worked AA. I tried Suboxone clinics, therapists. I mean, a bunch of different stuff, you name it. I tried it. And I'd actually legitimately wanted to get clean since 2010 or 2007. My sobriety date's in 2010. And what happened was when I went to jail, they put me in solitary confinement because my hand was bleeding so bad. And I was in this white jumpsuit, and I was the whole jail cell that I was in was covered in blood, and I was covered in blood. And I called my mom collect like 136 times, I think. And she wouldn't answer. She knew what it was. She was like, I'm done. Like, fuck you. And finally they released me on my own recognizance 36 hours after And the apartment complex says they're not going to press charges on me. They actually ended up pressing charges on me like a year later after I was sober. And it was cool. I got to make amends with them and pay, and go through that process, which wasn't very cool while I was going through it, but it was cool after the end result. So I get out of jail and I'm detoxing bad, man. And I'm like jonesing. And I know I got all these drugs and all this cash and stuff in my apartment, and nobody will help me. Nobody will give me a ride. I'm stuck. It's probably about like 15 miles or so. And it's like hot and I have no money and I'm covered in blood, and I look like really nasty, like people aren't like going to let me ride in their car with them. And, this nice little old lady walks up to me and she's like, you can use my phone. Cause I was asking people to use their phone, and people were like, fuck you, leave me alone. Like, cause I looked awful. I was covered in blood and like filthy. And I'd been in jail for 2 days detoxing. So this lady lets me use her phone, and I call my mom, and she finally answered because she didn't know the number. And I convinced her to come pick me up. She picks me up, drives me to my apartment, and I'm thinking I got all this shit there. Well, while I was in jail, my fiance at the time robbed me and took everything, emptied my safe. I had probably like $5,000, a bunch of pistols, a bunch of drugs. And I went from having all that stuff to having nothing. Plus there's an eviction notice on my door for breaking into my own apartment complex office. Apparently they don't like that. So now I'm about to be homeless. I lost everything. And my mom's like, you can stay with me and I'll put you up until you get back on your feet. So I go over to her house, and within a day I wreck my car because all I could find was benzodiazepines at that time. And then I steal her car keys and I wrecked her car in a 24-hour period. And I go back to her house and I try to act like someone else stole her car and not me. And she's like, shut the hell up. I know it's you idiot. And so she's like, you're homeless or you're going to treatment. And at first I chose homelessness, and I didn't last very long. I was homeless for like 30 minutes. So it doesn't even really count, right? Like I left and I walked and I called a bunch of people, and nobody would let me crash on their couch. Nobody would give me any cash. No one would help me. So I finally walked back to my mom's house, and I'm like, okay, I'll go to treatment. And so I go to treatment, and I remember getting there, waking up, and I'm detoxing and I'm feeling terrible. By this point, I'm probably 5-6 days in, and it's just awful. And like I'm crawling out of my skin, and I have insomnia. I'm crying. I don't pray at this point. Like I didn't really believe in God, and I'm begging God, like, if you exist, dude, please let me sleep for 5 minutes. I'm chain smoking cigarettes. I felt like I was dying, man. It was just so uncomfortable. I had no energy, and I was on the second story of an apartment. So I had to walk up and down these stairs, and like, I'd have to psych myself up and be like, all right, you can do this. Like walk up these stairs, like, you can do this. And it was just miserable. I was on a top bunk of a bunk bed with springs in my back. And they started bringing me to AA meetings. And in AA, what I found was some really cool people that had no profit motive, and they genuinely desired to help me. And that was weird because I always felt like everyone had an angle, I'd always say like, oh, Phoenix is trash. But the truth, I don't know if that cut me out. Sorry, I got a phone call. But the truth is, I was hanging out with a bunch of people that were doing bad things, and I was doing bad things. It's like the people, you can find good people no matter where you go. And the Xanax story from early recovery. Yeah, I'll tell that one. This was actually 36 days in when I first went to treatment. Someone just called me 3 times in a row from a number I don't know. Yeah, sorry. When I first, I was 36 days in, and I'd written a whole 4-step, but I was taking Xanax the whole time, and they were prescribing it to me because of withdrawals. And I didn't really understand the concept of like a selfless moral inventory or fearless moral inventory. And it was pretty much like very much an immoral inventory. Instead of like my girlfriend cheated on me, my part would be like, oh, don't date girls that are whores, and it's like, that's so not what the point was. I'm taking her inventory, right? And also I'm the asshole because like I cheated on her, I think 7 times, and then she finally cheated on me 1 time, and I'm like playing the victim, like, oh, how could she do that to me, and it's just funny the way that what the 4-step after I went through the process and I really did it for real taught me was that I'm not a victim. Like I have responsibility in my life, and I make decisions, and I also deal with consequences and repercussions of those decisions. And I'm at where I'm at today because it's my fault, whether it be a good thing or a bad thing. Like if I have a really good life, that's my fault, and God's blessed me. And if I have a really bad life, that's my fault, and I probably ran it into the ground with self-will. So Yeah, Xanax. So I went to the ASCII Pom, big Arizona State Conference for young people in AA, and I was in a blackout for 3 days walking around that hotel. That was the last time I got loaded, actually, and before I took the steps completely sober, and that was wild. Halloween of 2010 was the last time I was loaded, and I was in a blackout walking around this hotel, and I did a lot of dumb shit, and thank God for AA people that like really looked out for me in that time. I think I like stole $250 out of some dude's wallet and bought a bunch of people Monsters. I stole another kid's iPod. Remember iPods before we had iPhones with all that? And I stole that kid's iPod and I gave it to some chick that I thought was hot. And like, it was just a weird situation. And anyway, I get back to Prescott and I'm ready. Oh, and I got on stage and tried to do a freestyle rap battle. And that was like, I earned a nickname MC Half Drunk, and a bunch of people were making fun of me because of that, because I don't know how to rap battle, especially in a Xanax blackout. But I get back, and now I started working steps for real. And what I learned in my first step was like, it was evident, man. Like I didn't use or drink like normal people. Like I have friends and I barbecue. I'm big into barbecuing these days. And when I do that with normies, they'll have a beer or two and they don't get crazy and they stop. And that's what they do. And to me, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, why would you only have 2 beers? Like, that doesn't even make sense to me. But it's like, whatever, that's cool for them. I'm not that guy. I'll drink and drink and drink. One time I drank till about 4 a.m., ran out, and I went to the gas station and I did a beer run, and the guy pulled a gun on me. This is a true story. And I looked at him and I said, shoot me, bro. If you want to go to prison for the rest of your life over this pack of beer, it's not your fucking beer. I'm like, I'm going to drink this, call the police. They're not going to catch me. But like, what are you doing with the gun? Put it down. And he put it down like crazy. What if you just shot me? You know what I mean? Like, holy shit. So I go through my second step, and I don't believe in God at this time. But my first sponsor, he told me, listen, you don't have to believe in God, but you have to believe in the people that you've met in the program, that the steps worked for them and that something worked for them. And they're all telling you it's their God. So why don't you try to borrow some of that? And your third step at first, as simple as it can be, is you're going to do an honest and thorough 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and do the rest of the steps. So that was a very, very fundamental, original understanding of the third step. And he also told me, you don't have to believe in God to pray. He's like, just pray anyway. So I did. I didn't believe in God at all. And I just prayed. And I was like, God, if you keep me sober today, that'd be great. Thanks. And then at night, I'd be like, thank you for keeping me sober today. Thanks. And because I really did want to be sober, but I just didn't believe in God, man. And I started going through this 4th step. And when I actually took my real selfless and fearless moral inventory, I started realizing like there's a pattern emerging in my relationships of selfishness, dishonesty, manipulation, hypocrisy. And those things have still come up for me in my recovery. But yeah, like fear ran my life like down to the core. I had so many deep core beliefs. Like one of them came out earlier or later in recovery was just that like, I'm just shitty and I'm different and I suck and other people are just a little better than me. Like everybody's in on a joke that I'm not a part of. And y'all just know something I don't, or I'm bad. And whatever's bad about me is definitely not able to be cured. And it's also not diagnosable. I just suck. You know? So just stuff like that, or like I was really afraid to be alone, or I was afraid that I wasn't good enough. And it's like, good enough for what, man? Like, what are you even talking about? Like, it's just the ego. I don't know. I always like talk about self and how it manifests. And I believe when people say things like, I hate myself, I can't stand myself, who's the I and who's the myself, you know? And I think the ego is strong. And I think there's multiple facets of my personality that talk to me. Not like I hear voices in my head, like schizophrenia or something, but more like when I wake up, it starts right away. And it's just like, God, turn off the alarm clock. It's news. Fuck that. You don't want to get out of bed. And then their voice is like, get up. You're being lazy. What the fuck? And they'll be like, go to the gym. And then their side's like, you don't want to go to the gym. And then I don't go to the gym. And it's like, God, you're so fat and lazy for not going to the gym. And I'm just like, what is going on in my mind? And I can get quiet and get centered. And that's where I find God. And there's usually a voice that's right. And there's usually a voice that's wrong. And I think everything has an inverse, right? Like everything has a top, bottom, left, right, front, back, up, down. Everything has its opposite. So if there's evil in the world, there's good. And if there's evil in me, there's good in me, you know? And like, I think for a long time, I fed the wrong dog. Like I definitely played into the evil part of my mind. And I was very selfish and I didn't care. And today I try to live in a way where I'm a little less selfless and I don't hurt other people. So I started to realize like, I'm not a victim. It wasn't my dad dying and cheating on my mom that wasn't why I was getting loaded. It wasn't Kelsey cheated on me. I cheated on her 7 times, you know, and like my dad, I put drugs before my family. My family had to resuscitate me on a garage floor. All the stuff that he did, I was doing. I cheated on girls. So why am I sitting here acting like I'm better than him? And I got to learn a lot through that process, and it was rough. And then 6 and 7, man, my character defects are always going to be there. But today I'm willing to take a look at them. And if I'm not willing to change one, I pray for the willingness till it comes. Cause I used to rage a lot. That's a good one. And I don't like it. I feel ashamed afterwards. I feel shitty afterwards. And I've had to pray for willingness to stop being angry, you know, and just stuff like that. Going through amends, I feel like my soul will only allow me to have what I believe it deserves. And going through my amends process was like patching, like repairing my soul little bit by little bit. And it's not even so much about what the other person, how they receive it. It's the fact that like I'm willing to get humble enough to do it. And it doesn't matter if they weren't like harmed me more than I harmed them. It's just about my own conduct and the man that I want to be today in the world and the example I want to set. So today I sponsor 4 guys. I chair a meeting. The coolest part about sobriety is like I've been able to buy my first house sober. I've been able to buy my first car sober. I've been able to have my first child sober. He's 4 years old. I made him breakfast, took him to school today, picked him up from school. I'm going to play video games with him after this. You know, like I've gotten to do all that stuff sober, and he's never seen me loaded. So it's a journey, man, and it's wild and it's cool. You'll find, especially for the new people, right? Like when you stop getting loaded all the time out of nowhere, when you get a paycheck or you hustle up some cash somehow, you don't have to go right to the dope man, and you can actually save it or do something cool with it. You know, like I used to talk about doing cool shit all the time, but I'd be sitting on the couch getting high and drunk and not actually doing cool shit. But then like I got sober and now I've actually been able to do cool shit. Like today, it was uncomfortable, but my buddy invited me to a jiu-jitsu class, and I've done some striking MMA training, but I've never done jiu-jitsu. So I was like, fuck it, I'll go try jiu-jitsu. And he's a blue belt and I'm a white belt, and I have to spar with him. And he just kicked my ass for like an hour, you know, but I was like, whatever, I'm learning, I'm sweating, I'm having a good time. So, yeah, just, I'm freer today. There's no way when I was getting loaded, I would have done that. I'd have been like, no, I'm not good enough. I'm uncomfortable. I'm going to suck at it, blah, blah, blah. But today it's like, I just send it, man, and just have experiences, and God is good and life is good. And even when it's hard, AA sees me through it. I don't have much time right now, but man, there's so much more I could tell you guys about. There's a time in my sobriety where all within a week, my job fired me. I started a company that was losing money. My girl left me, started dating my best friend. You know, like everything in my whole life went. I had about 5 years sober, and every single one of those things since then, I see a bigger purpose behind it and why it happened, and my life's better because of those things happening. And I held on, and I was so attached to those things. I thought I was going to die when I lost them. And now I'm so fucking glad they're gone and that I have what is here. You know, it's like the painful times suck, but something's better is around the corner if you just stick around, man, and get the right people in your corner. So I think that's all I got. Thank you.